Welcome to Small Talk with Kenya and Dawn. I'm Dawn.
And I'm Kenya.
So we're back with part 2 in our relationship series talking about communication. So with communication, think about a couple that has been married as long as we have, and you find it difficult to continue to talk to your spouse. How do you get over that barrier to be able to do that? If you see an older couple or couple, our age, and they're not communicating, what's something that goes through your mind when you think about those things?
That actually makes me sad. Even when we're out to dinner and I see couples that are on their phones, not paying attention, not talking, or even really acknowledging that they're in each other's presence, it really makes me sad.
Yeah.
And it's always a reminder, we have this rule. When we are at dinner, we're at dinner. If, we'll have our phone up just for an emergency, but that's it, because I think we each deserve that undivided attention, because we are doing so many things every day that we don't always get to have those deep conversations. So when we're doing it, we need to acknowledge it and actually appreciate it.
I would say that is 100% correct. Being able to put your phone away, it allows you to be able to reconnect. It allows you to have those conversations with one another, and sometimes it even kind of forces you to talk to one another and not just sit there like a bump on the log, like you have nothing to say at all. You are able to reminisce about certain things, talk about how you feel today, your health wise, or your family, your children. What's your plans? Things that you wanna do, down the road. What do you see retirement look like? Are you able to, take a vacation? Or even if you're not able to afford to take a vacation, there's things I bet in your area that are free, that you're able to go out and you can enjoy those things. I was thinking earlier today about taking a ride out to Points West, and just go and sit by the water for a little bit. That's absolutely. It would have cost me some gas money, but it would have been well worth it just to go and just sit down and just relax and just enjoy the day. But that's another way that you're able to connect and communicate with one another. I think a lot of times we get so caught up in our day-to-day that we forget to talk to one another.
Absolutely.
And we just had that expectation of they're going to be there. We'll talk about this later on. Later on is not promised to you.
Time is precious. Precious. And Chet, you were talking about all those different things too. I also think it's very important, because of everything that we're enduring every day, all day long, and life in general. I think it's important for us to check on each other's mental. And just ask that question: how's your mental today? How are you feeling? What's going on? Because I think that's another segue into a deeper conversation sometimes. It
definitely is. When you look at, you should be able to know your spouse. You should know your husband, to where if something seems a little off with him,
You see it.
you notice exactly what it is, and ask him, are you okay?
Yeah.
Did something happen?
Yeah.
What's going on? And your husband may feel like he's burdening you with his problem or whatever the issue could be. Could be something really small. It could be something very, very big. But talk to your spouse.
Yes.
Talk to your husband. Talk to your wife, whichever one it is.
Yes.
And ask them, are you okay? Sometimes I can look at my husband and I can see things are bothering him. And I'll ask him all the time, what are you thinking about?
Yeah.
What's on your mind? And he'll say, I'm thinking about the kids, or, I was thinking about your situation, or I'm thinking about things with the church. I'm thinking about family. I'm thinking about retirement. I'm thinking about so many different things. But we are in constant communication with each other, not only just to check that box, but because we're genuinely interested in what is going on. And I also think that a lot of couples lose that.
Yeah.
That genuine interest because of life completely going on.
And you know, you said something when you were talking, naming the different things that you're asking your husband about.
Mm-hmm.
Do we even understand the genuineness and the importance of you showing up like that for that person? That's a lot to carry. That's a lot to carry. But you just asking the question is lightening that burden, because now I may be able to talk you through these things. I may be able to give you some insight where you were just sitting there spinning your wheels in something because you just had so many things going on.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing with the balance and the different stages of relationships and marriages and things. As we're getting older and our relationships are going, they're getting older as well. So who I showed up in my younger years and the conversation I had then, they weren't even relevant to where we are now.
Oh, goodness.
This is not even relevant. You know, it's important for me, as you said, you see your husband. When I see him retreat off, I'm going to say, what's going on? What's wrong? Because I know that's outside.
Right.
But I'm going to go a step further. We're not the only one watching. Because my kids has asked me several times, oh, what's wrong with your husband? What's wrong? What's going on with Daddy? He's my husband when he does. He's my husband then. And as soon as he snapped back, he's daddy.
He's daddy.
And that's the thing we have to understand as well. When you have, I'm going to use this word because I see my husband and my son reading this book and they just say so many good things out of this book. A kingdom man, that responsibility is a lot. And if I'm going to be his helpmate, help me,
There we go.
I have to be conscious of those things. And I can't allow life and everything else to get in the way of me checking in on one of the most important things in my life, and that's my husband and his mental.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if you're not in communication with each other, you can't help one another alone.
You cannot. Because you can read minds all day. That doesn't make it accurate.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to be in tune with one another, but when you're around each other so long, you know, you just know what's going on. You know something's off. You may not know exactly what it is, but you know that something is off. But when you have that door open to communication, you're able to dive in and say, you know, listen, I know this. This is what's been missing.
Right.
So what's going on here? It definitely shows that person that you care, that you're paying attention, that you see me.
Yes.
You see something's off with me. But that person also has to want to communicate with you.
Absolutely.
I've heard a lot of spouses say that they really don't talk to one another. They don't have that communication with each other. It's like, well, if they wanted me to know, they would tell me, which is true.
Which is true, but how have you given me a comfort zone to be able to talk to you?
Yeah.
Do you really want to hear what I have to say? And that matters too.
Yeah.
Because a conversation just can't be one-sided.
Cannot be one-sided. It's got to be something that is available.
Absolutely.
And has to be reciprocated. You can't just have a conversation by yourself.
Right.
Two people have to communicate with one another.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, it's just not going to work.
Absolutely.
So, looking at, again, couples that have been, you know, together for a while, and they've kind of lost that aspect of communication. It's like, how can you revive that? To me, there's some type of deficiency that's within the marriage if you're not able to talk to one another, if you don't have that communication. And we've talked before about how things will spill over throughout the household.
Yes.
are you teaching your children? What are you teaching your grandchildren?
Absolutely.
That you just shut down and you just don't communicate with each other? How do you fix those things? What are the tools that you can gain so that you're able to communicate with one another? What do you think?
I'm gonna say one of the things that has been such an important tool for us to have in our toolbox is being around other married couples, but not just any married couple,
Right.
but couples who've been married for a while, who've stood the test of time, and who marriage still looks healthy. Because when you haven't been given an example of a healthy marriage, your version is going to be skewed because you don't really know what that looks like. And even the couples that, we don't ever argue, or we're just, I run as fast as I can away from that, because you have two people that come together to live as one. There's bound to be some miscommunication. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So keeping myself around healthy couples, and healthy couples to me, they're living life together. They're holding each other accountable.
Right.
I'm that safe space for you to land on. And even if the conversation is a hard conversation, you trust me enough with it. That's what healthy looks like to me. And also, one thing that we've discovered over the last few years is marriage retreats. And not just any marriage retreat. Make sure it's a Christian-based marriage retreat, because we've already been taught so many things wrong. But just being there, it not only gives you a refreshed mindset, you're also in the midst of people who've been married 50, 60 years, and you're like, I'm just sitting here trying to soak up everything you have to say, because a lot of times, as we just said, we have to be shown what that looks like in order to want to mimic what they're doing. Because we talk about, you said, your husband have all these things, he's thinking about retirement and all these things. And a lot of times we get so caught up, we forget that this is going to be the relationship when the kids are gone. This is going to be the relationship when we retire together. So what are we going to do now? Just sit in the house and look at each other? Or not even want to look at each other, just sit in the house?
Oh my goodness. I think, and that's where people fall into trouble.
Yeah.
Married couples fall into trouble because now it's not a real marriage. It's convenience. It's familiar. Everything else has kind of disappeared. And you're just existing with each other.
That's it.
I'm gonna tell you one thing. Sometimes it's like my brain would get, like swirling, and I couldn't get out what I really wanted to say because I had so many things that were going on in my mind. Another way that I will communicate is on paper.
Ooh.
I was able to get out everything that I needed to get out, and it actually organized my thoughts a lot better than me just trying to speak those things out. But when I think about that, and for me, it's like my heart is on paper. And it's freeing for me to be able to write those things down. And if your spouse will take the time to listen, they will hear your heart.
Absolutely.
Which I think is a very effective way of communication, because, and don't just skim over it. I want you to read. I want you to read what I have written down.
Right.
Is that something that you've ever done before?
Not written down, which I really like that, because I'm one of those, I'm a Hallmark girl. So, cards and words really mean something to me, because we can be reckless with our words.
Yes.
And when you take the time to find the right one,
Mm-hmm.
and you know we haven't done that now. My husband and I will text each other these long paragraphs just to, you know, to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But I go back to the sentimental part where you're saying you see my heart.
Mm-hmm.
Because even if I can't verbally explain it to you,
Mm-hmm.
I can write it, and if you read it,
Mm-hmm.
then you can hear me.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see my heart, and you can see what I've been trying to convey to you that I just didn't have the words to say to you then. So that's, ladies, gentlemen, put that in your toolbox. Old school pen and paper.
It works.
It works. It literally shows your spouse your heart.
Yeah, it does. I've found a lot of old letters that my husband and I would write to each other, and I'm a real sentimental person with there's things that I keep, like, you know, my kids, I got their little baby boxes and, you know, those things, and I keep probably almost every single card that has been given to me, and I have all those cards in a box, probably a couple of boxes by now, but it's just those things and those letters and stuff that I found, and I read back over it again, and then I'm like, man, I can't believe I was feeling that way.
But doing that, does it kind of, and I don't know if this is for everybody, this is just for me, but it kind of makes me kind of fall in love all over again.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you see me,
Yes.
you hear me,
Yep.
you really love me,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Oh man.
It's like you see yourself all over again,
Yeah.
and you see, especially with those love letters.
Yeah.
And if you're having a hard time communicating, and you look back at some of those cards, you look back at some of those letters, it's a good reminder of why you fell in love in the first place.
Yes.
So you're able to kind of go back down memory lane and be like, oh wow, I can't believe, you know, I felt like this, or, you know, oh, that was silly that we got into, you know, that fight or whatever, but you're able to kind of spark that communication all over again and just talk to one another and just remember those good things that brought you together in the first place. So I think it's a great way to reignite.
That's a great word.
Yeah, reignite that communication.
And even now, there's nothing wrong with writing your spouse a love letter.
Yeah.
Let them see your heart.
We had a class, and that was one of the exercises. I don't know if everybody did it or not, but that was one of the exercises that we did was when I said, you know, hey, we're, you know, done for the night, and take this paper and write a letter to your spouse about everything that you appreciate about them. Let them know that you care. Let them know that the things that they're doing, you really do appreciate. Because we can say things in our communication that seem, you know, whatever it is, what it is. But tell people when you appreciate them.
Absolutely.
Especially your husband or especially your wife, guys. Let them know that they are appreciated. Have those talks with one another.
Yeah.
Make it a point, and this is something I just hit me. Say something positive to your spouse every day. If it's, hey, you smell good today, I like your cologne, or hey, you know, those shoes look good with that outfit, you know, something. Hey, I appreciate, you know, you praying for me today. Have that communication. Let's go to that. What's the communication with your prayer life?
You know, I think I said this before, and if I didn't, I'm going to say it. But there is nothing more sexier to me, even as we're praying at night. And sometimes my husband pray for some things that, for me, that I don't even think about for myself. And it makes me hold my head up and say, okay, boy, I see you. Because I'm like, you praying for me when I'm not even praying for myself.
Yeah.
So that in itself, and just the appreciation of it, and normally that's what I say. You know, I really appreciate you praying for me in that area because I didn't even think about it.
That's right.
And in that moment for me, I'm like, my husband, He covering me.
Mm-hmm.
He communicating with
Mm-hmm.
me. He doing all the things. And I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. But that prayer, and I've been reading this book through that challenge we talked about, couples who pray together, and there's a 40-day challenge
Mm-hmm.
to pray together every single day for 40 days. And even if your prayer starts out with 30 seconds because you may not know how to pray,
Right.
or you gonna get, lost and I don't know, what I should say,
Yeah.
but you're having that open communication with God. You're having that communication with your spouse, and you two are there together.
Right.
I can probably almost guarantee you your prayer can go from 30 seconds to probably 30, 40 minutes
Wait.
easily. And you don't even realize it because he's opening up so much to you. And then you start thinking about, oh goodness, my wife is out on the road. Let me pray for her protection.
Yes.
Let me pray that no cars, that she has any type of an accident. Let me pray that, she doesn't get caught by a police officer today. That, everything that, hey, no red lights. She's maybe a few minutes late for work today. Let her just breeze right on through to work.
Oh, man.
Just different things that your husband or your wife can pray for you.
Yes.
And I tell you, it's like, and it's like I was saying before about, your heart on paper. But when you're praying your heart for the person that you love, right underneath the God, right underneath the Him. You are praying for that person. And that type of communication, to me, is priceless.
Priceless.
It gets no better than that. It's just important
It is.
to remember them in everything that in everything that they're doing.
Yeah.
Allow your spouse to know that you are covering them.
Yes.
And not just husbands cover your wife, but wife cover your husbands as well. Let them hear you.
Yes.
But even in that communication of prayer, in that book it was saying it cuts down on arguments.
Oh, wow. Well, I mean, you think you constantly inviting Jesus into that third chord is constantly being tightened.
Yeah.
The more you invite him in, the tighter those chords get.
Yeah.
So it has to.
It's got to.
Because what are you going to be arguing about? We're praying too long?
Okay. No.
Right.
And it should continue to expand.
Absolutely.
What you say will continue to expand. The time that you give will also expand because it opens up your heart.
It does.
And you start thinking about things. And it's more and more and more. And it's not a competition of, okay, I prayed for, 6 hours today. No, it's just, it's just that your prayer becomes more heartfelt. Not to say that a 5-minute prayer is not just as heartfelt as a 45-minute prayer is, but it's just knowing that it's there, that communication is open. But I think it will also cause your communication within your relationship to open up even more because they may say something that you weren't even thinking about or you thought that they were even paying attention to.
Which will cause you to have a conversation.
Yes, will open that door for a conversation, yes.
Man.
Goodness. That's a lot to think about.
That's good. That's good.
That's a lot to think about. But you gotta start somewhere.
Because we absolutely do. I just can't imagine. And I remember early on when I get mad, I'm not gonna talk to you for a couple days. But even now, even if I'm mad, I can't imagine a day without talking to my husband. And I always tell him, which is something that we talked about earlier, that trauma. And certain things are off limit to us. You can't just walk through the house and not talk to me. That's a trigger for me. So if you're gonna do that, then to me, you're not considerate, and you haven't been listening. So I just think at so many different stages of our marriage, as we grow, as we change, our conversation's gonna grow, it's gonna change. But it is absolutely necessary that we talk to each other.
Yeah.
It is absolutely necessary.
Well, you hit something when you talked about the trauma. That's a hard subject sometimes to be able to bring up and share when you've experienced trauma. And sometimes people don't know how to react. And it can shut people down. A lot of times people cannot express how they feel because of what they have gone through.
Absolutely.
It's gonna have to come a point in time where you're gonna have to tear that wall down brick by brick to have that difficult conversation about childhood trauma, adult trauma.
Absolutely. Real thing.
Real thing, because if you're not able to discuss things that have happened to you, I don't think that you have that level of trust within your relationship that you really need to have, because you can't give your heart to that person completely.
And it goes back to, we have to be each other's safe space to learn. We cannot ever mess any of that up. We can never ever give them any part of thinking that we are not their safe space. And we have to really stand in it too, because some conversations may be hard, but what you said earlier, listening, showing up for it, because we gotta figure this is the person that's gonna prop us up, and we gotta prop them up. So you are just as healthy as I am, because we are each other's safe space.
That's right.
Because you trust me with everything, and I trust you with everything. So even if it's a conversation that I don't even think is valid, I'm gonna ask, you think this stupid? I mean, just to really have a conversation. But again, my accountability partner, because sometimes I have to be checked, and I have to be reminded, you can't do that.
Okay, so we are gonna stop here at this point, and I thought we were gonna be done, but something else just popped up in my mind. So we are going to again end right here. Join us again next week for part 3 of our relationship series in communication. Again, like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you again next week.
See you next week.
Thank you.